Segment 2, Golden Black Live. Ken Halpin joins us. He will be a person that will need no introduction before long, but maybe now he does. He's been a month as Purdue's deputy athletic director, comes to Purdue with a wealth of experience, and has a big job, because any job in big athletics, in big time athletics, in the middle of a pandemic, presents its challenges. But Ken, we're going to talk some football first off, because obviously tomorrow will be an exciting day and a big opportunity for Purdue as the Boilermakers travel to South Bend to play Notre Dame. You've played the sport at the collegiate level. You've watched a little bit of the Boilermakers since you've been here since the first week of August. What's the vibe, and what do you see as some of the keys to tomorrow's game against the Fighting Irish?
That's absolutely. It's a great question. Couldn't be more excited to be here. You're right. It's a big, but it's an unbelievably exciting job.
Yeah,
it's unbelievably exciting too to get to work with a lot of people who are here. So as we get to prepare our trip, it will be my first time up to South Bend. Yes, I did play in college, but it wasn't on the level where I was playing any schools that are in South Bend, Indiana. Here's what I'll tell you: the vibe coming into the season, because I got hired, my first day was August 9th, and so right. I think that weekend was the first or second weekend of camp, and just got to go out and see the team in person for the first time and talk to everyone around the field. And I really got a sense that everybody inside the program is carrying a belief about how good we are this year that didn't necessarily mesh with anybody outside the program. And that's what matters, right? The belief that you carry with your teammates and with your coaching staff, it was deep. And then, as I observed, and I think we all did, the first week of football, no matter what you were ranked or no matter how you were scouted by the court of public opinion, it seemed like almost anybody could beat anybody on week one. Yeah. And even to some extent, week two, we saw that as well with what happened down at Florida State. There's everybody can win on any given Saturday. If you got to bring it, you got to be prepared. And so then as I've gotten to know, just see how Coach Braum works from afar, and I've gotten to know some of the coaches on the staff, and I've gotten to know some of the student athletes, there is a deep-seated belief in how good we are this year, and there's no opinion in the world outside of this program that can impact it negatively. So, and then you sprinkle on a little drum drama in the news, and we've got everything we need to go up to South Bend and come home with a win. So,
can't you solve that problem? Can't you talk to your compadres up there and get that a wider tunnel? That would be a heck of a first. Boy, it has gotten more. It's taken on, well, as the wonderful world of social media, Twitter can take on a life of its own, their own, and it has done that. So yeah, first. Go ahead.
I would say it has taken on a life of its own. I will say, if I maybe in a few years I'll get so good that I can solve band access at visiting teams. But I think it's a fun story. But I will tell you, from an athletics department standpoint and our football team, there's so much focus on what matters most, and that's targeting that 3-0 record. So
yeah, that it is a great environment up there. You'll get a chance to enjoy that, and who knows? Maybe someone's going to have a big helicopter and we'll solve that problem. I'm not thinking not, but
there's a lot of smart people at this engineering.
Yeah, I know, and they've really been testing the Purdue engineering part very much. Yes. So you came to Purdue from Winthrop and a very successful basketball program, volleyball program, sports program there.
Yeah.
And Purdue fans know it well because of its reputation. Why this move? What at your lot in life and stage in life, what attracted you to Purdue, and what gave you that nudge in your family, the nudge to come to West Lafayette?
It's a good question. When I got hired at Winthrop, that was a big deal professionally. At the Division I level, there's 352, I think today, Division I schools. So that means there's only 352 Division I athletic director chairs, and to get any of them is not easy. And I've had some great mentors in my life to help me understand that. So to get that job was a huge deal. You get down there and you get to work around spectacular people, because you're right, the tradition and the history of Winthrop basketball is significant. So I got to get down there and then work with a coach like Pat Kelsey, who, in our time together in Rock Hill, we went to 3, NCAA tournaments. Winthrop had been there quite a bit in the past. And so you get to understand and be a part of a championship mindset, the championship tradition. And then, like you said, you carry that forward. We hired Chuck Ray in volleyball, and he carried it forward. And so you start to understand how that championship mindset cascades on itself and grows. And so my family, I mean, you ever get to Rock Hill, it's one of the most incredible places you could ever hope to live. Some of the most incredible people in the world are still there. And my family and I agreed, like, if we were ever going to leave Rock Hill, it needed to be for something spectacular, something really significant. And as I talked with mentors over the years, and I talked about, we love it in Rock Hill. We could do this forever. And we and they still have, we had eyes set on, the goal was to advance in the tournament and continue to establish ourselves as a mid-major basketball power. If I was going to leave, talked about, is there any way to potentially have an opportunity to be a true number two in a Power 5 athletics department? The deputy AD role and what it's becoming in the world of college athletics today is a robust one. Could it be under somebody who, again, you don't always get to pick your bosses, but if you can pick your bosses, you want somebody who has done it at the highest level successfully for a very long period of time. And that's exactly who Mike Babinski is. And his reputation in our industry is spotless. And he's done it at multiple institutions, and his trajectory, I forget which coach said it. You're either going up or you're going down. He's been going up his entire career. And so the chance to work under somebody like Mike was a big, big detail. And then finally, for me personally, as you probably know, I have a PhD in education. I have spent every year that I've worked in college athletics, and up until this year so far, always teaching at least one class a year. I am fascinated by the nexus of the academic mission of the institution and how the athletic department can actually enhance that. And so it mattered to me that the institution's reputation from an academic standpoint was elite. And all three of those things are absolutely checked here at Purdue. And so, I saw it as a chance to be a number two at an institution where the athletic department is trending up and trending up fast. And you can see that with the start of football, the start of volleyball, all the implications with basketball. Like I came here because I think there's some folks here who want to do some really transformational stuff. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. So.
You've obviously had that experience in basketball and had a chance to be around Matt Painter and company. A great culture from all indications. We all know that. What do you see there? I mean, obviously the anticipation of this season is off the chain. We get that too, but that in your role that there's a lot of things that have to go right and correctly behind the scenes for this to get to the level that Purdue fans want it to get. What do you see in your 5 weeks in West Lafayette when you see Matt Painter and company operate?
Yeah, I love that question. It's funny. Coach Payne and I were just catching up yesterday, and I've gotten to know the guys on his staff, and I've gotten to know the guys on the team. And when your culture has been refined, because like culture and tradition, somebody told me this once. You can't just go down to this, no matter how much money you have. You can't just go down to the store and buy them off the shelf. That's the stuff that takes time and intentionality. And so Coach Payne's had time to build that. And so we were just talking yesterday, and I think, roughly 10% of the time we were talking was about work that needed to be done. And the rest of it was just catching up about the world of college basketball and the people that have come and gone through the years. And, what really I took away is when you have things dialed the way you want it to, things flow incredibly efficiently so that there is more time to truly get to know people and understand who they are and where they come from. And that's something he takes seriously is understanding who the human beings are that he relies on to drive this team forward, not just the staff and the coaches, but the student athletes as well. His ability to understand people and humans and what makes them tick is unlike any I've ever seen. And so it's just a blast to be a part of that, to get to see efficiency at the highest level. And so you're right, the anticipation is high, but combined with the anticipation, there's no stress. There's no, what I would say is it's a subtle difference, but there's no fear of failure. There's just 100% ambition and leaning forward in pursuit of success, if that makes sense. No rearview mirrors. So.
Good place to be, I think, if you're Matt Painter and company. And as you observe, you and I've had one conversation before. But what your PhD? What did you do your dissertation on? What was your area of? It's always interesting to hear guys that you've obviously had an athletic bent throughout your entire life.
Yeah.
But to get that doctorate is an interesting process for you. What did you do with that on? And
Yeah.
and maybe, you know, and I understand you're 5 weeks into this job and you may be at Purdue for the next 20 years. Who knows? But you know, you all have aspirations of is higher ed part of your, you know, university administration, maybe above and beyond athletics a possibility, or what do you think as you move forward?
So it's a question I don't get often, is what was my dissertation written on? And I love that question. So my dissertation topic was specifically on, in the world of college athletics, measuring something that really isn't measured very often. And the term is called donor constraints. And so think of donor constraints as the opposite of donor motivations. So donor motivation is why somebody chooses to give to an athletics department. Well, a donor constraint is measuring why somebody chose not to give to an athletics department. And so I spent a lot of time on that. Ironically, one of the primary researchers in the area, a guy named Dan Mahoney, was actually the president who hired me at Winthrop University. He's now the Southern Illinois system president. But that was a lot of fun. And I think it carries forward because to just steal a tiny piece of it. And most people who work in development would tell you they understand this inherently. But some of the objective tangible outcomes, one of the primary donor constraints was simply just effective communication. And in other words, well, nobody asked me, if that makes sense. And so that's every effective development officer understands that the number one key is, no matter how talented you are, if you don't ask, they're not going to give. And so anyways, that's beside the point. To answer your second question, what are my future aspirations? I hope this doesn't sound cheesy or cliche, but like, I am really excited about being at Purdue. Understood. And the way I got here, and this isn't made up, the way I got here was not really thinking about that, if that makes sense. I have been, again, I reference, collection of mentors often. And one thing that I've always clung to is the whole notion of grow where you're planted. And so, and I try to teach younger staff this too all the time. The more you think about what your next job is, the less you're thinking about what you're doing right now to make a difference. And so I'm, I'm a very firm believer that if you just work on transformational stuff and you do what's best for the brand every day, all day, every day, you can't land in a bad spot. And so I truly don't think of a next. I think of I ride for the brand. I belong to the Motion P, and whatever helps that strengthen itself throughout the world. That's what I'm in here for. And the cool thing about Purdue is there are a lot of people who carry that same mindset. We're just here to do cool stuff and strengthen this brand and help prepare our student athletes to go out and do the same, to change the world through their experience growing as a student and student athlete at Purdue. So fully acknowledging that might be a bit of a non-answer, but it's the truth. I don't think that way. I just love being a part of a great brand and doing stuff that matters. So
yeah, good answer and a reasonable answer. Probably an unfair question by me, actually, because you're 5 weeks into the job. So I get that too as well. Tell us a little bit about your specific marching orders from Mike Babinski and that working relationship. What will you focus on? What will be your main areas of focus, or is it spread across the entire department?
Yeah, it's a good question. Mike was really clear. So in addition to the deputy athletics director, on paper, the chief operating officer moniker has been attached to the position. Yeah. And Mike was pretty open about how important that piece is, and understanding that there is, we're exiting COVID in a spectacular place. And when we went into COVID, Mike was leading the department in a strategic planning process to sort of try to map out, the next 5 to 7 year trajectory for Purdue athletics. And COVID didn't just happen by itself. It happened right on top of transfer legislation and name, image, and likeness. And now this whole question mark about the entire association. And so that is consuming a ton of Mike's attention at the Big Ten level. He's on, because of his reputation in the industry, he gets a seat at the table for so many committees and groups that are basically carving the future of the industry. So with that, keeping a pulse on the day-to-day operations of the entire department is essentially what he is attached to the chief operating officer portion of the job. And so yeah, it's 5 weeks, and I'd be lying if I said I've got the whole department figured out right now.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to learn the people fast. I'm making it a goal to meet every person in the athletic department face to face at least one time before our competitive seasons end. We're going to re-pick up the strategic planning process and sort of entertain the steps, knowing that now we've got a post-COVID and a new NIL environment tied to it, and really trying to make sure that from a day-to-day standpoint, our athletic department operates at its highest level of efficiency so that our student athletes are provided every single resource, time, money, emotional resources, human resources, everything that's needed so that they can be successful.
All right, I'm going to, with your academic training and your background, I'm going to ask you about, so you got to be a little bit of a crystal ball guy, at least in terms to think about these things. So tell me about name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
And how that might affect fundraising, or how does that affect everything? I mean, how do you see that playing? And again, that's a tough question based on the fact we're a whole 2 months into that process. So I know it's been going on for longer than that. But what do you see from that? I mean, and maybe from not only from your perspective, but also a student athlete perspective moving forward.
So, in the world of prognostication, the one thing I always say is everybody who tells you they know how it's going to go is a liar. Nobody knows. We can all make our best educated guesses, but I do think the nature of the future of the constitution of the NCAA also has some impact on how name, image, and likeness will reveal itself. I, for one, I will say, because of the timing that I came up in the industry, and I'm not unique. I think a lot of younger administrators came up with the belief from day one that the student athlete needs the opportunity to benefit from their name, image, and likeness, just like every other student, and that it can happen. The rules can be adjusted. The word amateurism can just go away, and everything's going to be just fine. I always say Jodie Foster was a student at Yale in the theater program and performing in theater performances while also performing in major motion pictures, and nobody died. She made plenty of money as an actress, but her collegiate experience and her education was important, and so she stuck with it and she did it. Our student athletes are no different. Their education experience is important to them. If they can run an effective TikTok or YouTube channel, there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be allowed to benefit from that financially. How's that going to manifest itself with donors and fan base? This is a place where I think people, we run to the extreme example. What happens when, somebody gives an 18-year-old $1 million for their autograph and influences where they go? Well, I say, number one, in the free market, it usually corrects itself. So while that might happen, an example, if that becomes within the scope of the rules, all it takes is one recruit not to pan out, and the people who have the money are going to suddenly be more judicious with how they spend it. That's the free market. But number two, my thing is like all of the things. We've created so many rules to make it feel like we're bad actors. And it's funny. I heard this line the other day and I thought it was funny. We've taught the court of public opinion what is bad and isn't bad. And now what we have, the analogy was the NCAA is hanging people for jaywalking and letting your homicidal murderers go free. Like the way, where kids are influenced behind scenes with shady deals that tie them up to future business opportunities. That's what we're trying to avoid. We're not trying to avoid whether or not a text message was sent at 8 a.m. or 7 p.m. from a coach because we didn't know if the kid was in the portal or not. Like we've got to get we've got to align our focus on what matters most for the student athlete to be successful. So I think that's where name, image, and likeness will be impacted by the nature and the evolution of the association. I do think that, and there are others who think this, more sport-specific rules. And so if you have, say, an Olympic sport that aligns with a national governing body with a pipeline to an Olympic medalist hopeful, I think you can allow NGBs to have more influence over the rule for the sport versus the entire association. But the last thing I'll say is, here's what I do know. No matter what, every year, Purdue is going to line up against that other school down in Bloomington under some umbrella. I don't know what it's going to be called. I don't know what the rules are going to be, but we're still going to play basketball. We're still going to play football. We're still going to play volleyball against, other schools in this state. And that's never going to change. That is essential to the fabric of the life we live in the United States of America today. And in our university and collegiate mindset, there's way too much excitement and demand behind what that creates and the memories it creates. I mean, I'm sure you've got listeners and followers who have multiple generations of Purdue alums who have memories from when they came to tailgates with their grandpa, who was a Purdue alum 10 years ago. And they're finally bringing their son and their daughter and their grandchildren to the Purdue tailgate, when we host Illinois in a couple of weeks. So that's the part that I'm confident will remain unchanged.
Good answer and very interesting. And with this prompts, we'll do this at least once a semester. It's a very, very well thought out. We wish you a safe trip to South Bend, and best to you and your family as you continue to get established in the West Lafayette community. It is a great place, and you've, I think, already found that out. Great place to have kids and have a family. So, Ken, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it, and we will take a short break. And Brian and Tom will join me, and we'll break down even more Purdue Notre Dame stuff. I don't know how we can do more. There's been so much, and like Ken said, we're going to prognosticate. We don't know, but we are interested and looking forward to tomorrow's game. Ken, have a great trip, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Boiler up.